He didn't rise to power, he pulled himself out of the fire. In the ghostly glow of Caspian oil rigs, a young boy watched explosions light the sky, men swallowed by flame, and a Soviet empire built on sweat, danger, and silence. Most children ran from that world. Vagit Alekperov walked straight into it. He grew up where oil wasn't a business, it was survival. And from those brutal beginnings, he forged something no one in Russia had dared to build. A private oil empire born in the chaos of a collapsing superpower fueled by risk. As the Soviet Union fell, others grabbed scraps. He grabbed an industry. From a low-paid drilling engineer to the quiet mastermind behind LUKoil, the only Russian oil giant not controlled by the Kremlin, Alekperov became a billionaire in a country where billionaires routinely vanish. But power never comes clean. Behind the polished boardrooms are offshore networks, sanctions, hidden penalties, political storms, and controversies that refuse to die. And when the Ukraine war reshaped the world, he was forced to step down as if the empire he built was suddenly too dangerous to stand beside. So now the world is asking, did Vagit Alekperov build Russia's most independent oil empire, or did he simply master the art of surviving in a world where fortunes can disappear overnight? He did not inherit an empire, he inherited oil, danger, and death. Vagit Alekperov was born on the 1st of September 1950 in Baku, Azerbaijan SSR, the oldest heart of the global petroleum industry, the city where oil rigs rose from the sea like iron skeletons, where explosions were common, and where a boy learned early that survival and ambition were the same thing. His father, an Azerbaijani Muslim, spent his entire life in the oil fields and died when Vagit was still a child. His mother, a Russian Orthodox woman, raised him between two identities, but Alekperov never locked himself into one religion. But there was something else he inherited from his mixed heritage: the ability to navigate between worlds. In Soviet Azerbaijan, where ethnic tensions simmered beneath the surface, young Vagit learned to speak multiple languages, to adapt, to read the room before speaking. He married young, keeping his family life deliberately private. His wife and children would remain in the shadows throughout his career, a calculated decision in a country where a man's family could become leverage against him. While other oligarchs flaunted wealth and wives, Alekperov kept his personal life sealed tight. It was a pattern that would define his entire career, control the narrative or disappear from it entirely. But one thing was defined: he would follow the oil. In 1974, he graduated from the Azerbaijan Oil and Chemistry Institute with a degree in engineering. And while others chased comfort, he walked into the harshest oil frontier on Earth. Western Siberia, 1979. Temperatures that snapped metal work sites where men froze in minutes. Rigs that collapsed without warning. But Alekperov didn't just survive Siberia, he studied it. While other engineers complained about conditions, he took notes. He watched how poorly Soviet oil operations were managed. Corrupt foremen, wasted resources, demoralized workers treated like machinery. He began building a different philosophy. Treat engineers like thinkers, not laborers. Reward efficiency, not just obedience. Pay workers well enough that they wouldn't steal. Production targets that seemed impossible were met. Alekperov's reputation spread, the young engineer who could turn chaos into order. From 1979 to 1985, he worked at Surgutneftgaz, earning a reputation as the young engineer who solved the problems nobody else could. By 1985, he became first deputy general director of Bashneft's production company. By 1987, he rose again, this time to general director of Kogalimneftgaz, a new production company that he transformed into one of the Soviet Union's most efficient oil operations. The boy from Baku was no longer a worker. He was becoming a force. The late 1980s were breaking the Soviet Union apart. In the rubble, Alekperov saw opportunity. In 1990, at just 39, he was appointed Deputy Minister of the Oil and Gas Industry of the Soviet Union, the youngest in Soviet history. It was the blueprint of something bigger. That same year, he traveled to the United Kingdom to meet British Petroleum. Executives expected a nervous Soviet bureaucrat. Instead, Alekperov took control of the meeting, demanding BP show him, step by step, how a modern Western oil company is built. He didn't want advice, he wanted a model to build his own. But Alekperov wasn't alone in this game. Across Moscow, other ambitious men were circling Russia's oil wealth. Roman Abramovich, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, they lacked something Alekperov had: experience. While they were bankers and traders scrambling to understand oil, Alekperov had spent 20 years in the fields. He knew which assets were valuable and which were worthless. He knew the engineers, the foremen, the regional bosses. And most importantly, he had government credibility as deputy minister. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, he wasn't an outsider trying to grab assets. He was an insider positioned to organize them. The moment arrived. Oil fields were abandoned. Companies were leaderless. Assets were floating without owners. Alekperov began to merge three Siberian giants. The merger wasn't smooth. Regional governors wanted control. Local managers resisted. Competitors tried to steal key assets. Alekperov moved with surgical precision. He personally flew to Siberia, meeting with every major stakeholder. He promised local managers better pay and Western technology. And critically, he structured ownership so no single entity could control LUKoil. Not the Kremlin, not foreign investors, not even himself entirely. It was a masterpiece of corporate architecture designed to survive Russia's unpredictable political storms. And at the top stood Vagit Alekperov, president and chairman of the board. It was a structure, a strategy, a machine. LUKoil wasn't an accident. It was engineered. In 1995, LUKoil's first major international move, a joint venture in Kazakhstan. While other Russian companies stayed home, Alekperov went hunting for reserves beyond Russian borders. In 1997, he bought a refinery in Romania, LUKoil's first European asset. Then Bulgaria, then Ukraine. Each acquisition was calculated: buy distressed assets cheap, inject capital and expertise, turn them profitable within 3 years. By 1999, LUKoil operated gas stations across 12 countries. Drivers in Sofia, Bucharest, and Kyiv were filling up at pumps branded with the Red Diamond, a Russian company competing directly with Shell and BP. Then came the turning point. November 2000, LUKoil became the first Russian company ever to acquire an American company. They bought Getty Petroleum Marketing, taking over 1,300 gas stations across the United States. For the first time in history, a private Russian oil company controlled a slice of the American fuel market. Washington noticed, so did Moscow. The Getty deal terrified Alekperov's rivals. While Khodorkovsky's Yukos was larger and flashier, LUKoil was now genuinely international. LUKoil was different, privately controlled, globally ambitious, and dangerously independent. The Kremlin was watching. Putin was consolidating power, and independent oligarchs were becoming problems. Khodorkovsky would learn this the hard way, in 2003 arrested and imprisoned. His company, Yukos, was destroyed and absorbed by state-owned Rosneft. Yet Alekperov survived. How? He never challenged Putin publicly, never funded opposition parties, never gave interviews criticizing the government. By 2002, he owned 10.4% of the company. In 2005, Alekperov became the first Russian citizen ever to receive the Woodrow Wilson Award for corporate citizenship recognition from America. By 2006, he expanded into banking and media, becoming co-owner of IFD Capital Group. In 2007, Alekperov founded Our Future, a charitable foundation supporting social entrepreneurship across Russia. In May 2008, he bought 11.13 million new LUKoil shares. the private king of Russian oil. LUKoil now spanned Europe, the Middle East, Central Asia, the United States, and Latin America. It wasn't just an oil company, it was a structure built on discipline and silence. From 2011 onwards, the world changed, and with it, the rules of power. LUKoil continued expanding across Europe and the Middle East, yet the political ground beneath Alekperov was shifting. In a Russia where the Kremlin controlled every major industry, his independence became increasingly dangerous. 2017, the United States Congress named Vagit Alekperov in the CAA-TSA oligarch list. He was no longer just a businessman, he was a geopolitical target. 2020, the global oil crash devastated markets. LUKoil's profits collapsed. Behind closed doors, Alekperov began planning his exit, hinting at a successor by 2023. However, the real storm arrived in 2022, February 24, 2022. Russia invaded Ukraine. In a rare act of defiance, LUKoil's board publicly called for an end to the war, the largest Russian company to break ranks. Across the world, even LUKoil's local businesses were being punished. In Newark, New Jersey, city officials voted to shut down several LUKoil gas stations, arguing that any Russian-linked business should be barred from operating during the invasion. In Belgium, Ukrainian activists even staged protests urging a boycott of LUKoil stations. On May 4, 2022, just weeks after the invasion began, Vladimir Putin personally awarded Vagit Alekperov the Order for Merit to the Fatherland, First Degree, Russia's highest civilian honor. The West was sanctioning him. His assets were frozen. LUKoil had publicly called for peace, yet Putin gave him Russia's most prestigious medal. Was it a reward, or a reminder that in Russia, no billionaire truly escapes the Kremlin's reach? Resignation wasn't enough. The structure itself had to shrink. 2022, Alekperov transferred Heesen Yachts, the Dutch luxury shipbuilder, to an independent foundation. The $120 million Galactica Supernova, his personal super yacht, became a liability overnight. 2023, LUKoil sold its Sicilian refinery. Without Russian crude, it was worthless. Bulgaria, the Burgas refinery was put up for sale. Estimated value, $2 billion. Gas stations across Romania, Ukraine, and Eastern Europe, once crown jewels, were quietly rebranded or sold off. Europe was lost. The future was now Asia. By 2023 to 2025, LUKoil pivoted sharply toward China, India, and the Middle East. Yet LUKoil survived, and so did Alekperov. The architect was forced to abandon his own creation. A world where business had become warfare and independence had become a death sentence. He never wanted to be a king, only an architect. From the fire-lit shores of the Caspian to the highest peaks of global power, Vagit Alekperov built something no one thought possible in Putin's Russia, an independent oil structure. Where others grabbed scraps from the Soviet collapse, he engineered a system. He mastered the silent language of power in a nation where speaking too loud could get you killed. He tried to give back. Billions pledged to charity, COVID relief, social entrepreneurship, a promise to leave his fortune to the people, not his heirs. Yet in today's Russia, no structure stands too tall without casting a shadow. The very independence that made LUKoil legendary ultimately made it a target. So we're left with one haunting question. Did Alekperov truly build Russia's most independent oil giant, or did he simply master the art of knowing when to step away before being destroyed?